Maria scrambled up the rocky slope toward her extraction point, her laptop bag bouncing against her back and her radio crackling with urgent communications. Behind her, she could hear enemy fighters shouting in Pashto as they discovered her abandoned position and realized that the foreign woman who had been guiding the Americans was escaping. Guardian Angel, extraction helicopter is 5 minutes out. The pilot's voice crackled through her radio. Can you reach the landing zone? Maria looked up at the rocky plateau where the helicopter would land, still 200 meters of steep climbing ahead of her. Behind her, flashlight beams were getting closer, and she could hear the distinct sound of automatic weapons being prepared for firing. I'm climbing as fast as I can, Maria whispered into her radio, trying to control her breathing as the thin mountain air burned her lungs. But they're right behind me. That's when she heard a voice behind her shouting in accented English, American woman.
Stop running!
We know you are there. Maria's blood froze. They had identified her as the intelligence source and were specifically hunting her. She was no longer just a translator who happened to be in a dangerous place. She was a high-value target whose capture would be a major propaganda victory for the enemy. She forced herself to keep climbing, using the training she had received during her brief combat preparation course. Move from cover to cover, stay low, don't present a silhouette against the sky. But Maria was exhausted from 8 hours of intense mental work, and the enemy fighters behind her were mountain natives who could climb these slopes in their sleep. 2 minutes out, Guardian Angel, the helicopter pilot reported. I can see muzzle flashes on the slope below you. When I land, you'll have maybe 30 seconds to reach the bird before we take fire. Maria reached a small ledge and paused to catch her breath, looking down at the valley where SEAL Team 5 had been trapped just hours earlier. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had guided 8 elite soldiers to safety, and now she was the one who needed rescuing. But as she prepared for the final climb to the landing zone, Maria heard something in her radio earpiece that made her stomach drop. Enemy fighters were coordinating on multiple frequencies, and they weren't just pursuing her. They were setting up an ambush for the rescue helicopter. Pilot, abort landing, Maria shouted into her radio. They have RPGs positioned on the ridgeline. It's a trap. Guardian Angel, I can't leave you there. Maria looked up at the helicopter approaching through the darkness, its navigation lights making it an easy target for rocket-propelled grenades. She realized that her rescue was about to become a disaster that could cost the lives of the flight crew and potentially compromise other operations. Listen to me, Maria said urgently. I'm monitoring their communications. They have 3 RPG teams positioned to hit you the moment you land. You need to abort and find an alternate extraction point. Guardian Angel, there is no alternate extraction point. This is the only landing zone within 50 miles. Maria closed her eyes and made the hardest decision of her life. She thought about her children waiting at home, about Rosa, who was taking care of her siblings, about Miguel, who was probably doing his math homework at their kitchen table, about little Sophia, who still asked when Mommy was coming home. Pilot, I'm giving you a direct order. Abort extraction and return to base. I'll find another way out. Ma'am, I can't leave an American citizen behind enemy lines. You can and you will, Maria said firmly. I'm not worth the lives of your crew or the compromise of this mission. Tell my children I love them. Maria turned off her radio and began moving away from the landing zone, knowing that the helicopter crew would be forced to abort once they realized she wasn't coming. She had saved SEAL Team 5 and now she was saving the rescue crew, but she was also accepting that she might not make it home to her children. But Maria Santos had not come this far to give up now. She had one advantage that her pursuers didn't expect. She had been monitoring their communications all day and understood their tactics, their organization, and their weaknesses. Using her knowledge of the enemy's radio protocols, Maria began broadcasting false information on their frequencies, using perfect Pashto to confuse and misdirect the fighters pursuing her. She reported false sightings of American forces in different locations, created fake emergency situations that drew fighters away from her position, and used her cultural knowledge to make the deceptions believable. American helicopter spotted landing 3 kilometers south, she broadcast on one frequency. Large American force deploying to rescue their people. Within minutes, she could hear enemy commanders redirecting their forces away from her actual position toward the false landing site she had described. Maria used this confusion to begin working her way down the mountain toward a valley where she knew local villagers lived. For 3 days, Maria Santos played a deadly game of cat and mouse in the Afghan mountains. She used her language skills to eavesdrop on enemy communications, her cultural knowledge to avoid detection by local villagers who might betray her, and her intelligence training to stay ahead of organized search efforts. She slept in caves, drank from mountain streams, and ate wild plants she identified using survival knowledge from her briefings. Most importantly, she used her radio equipment to coordinate with Bagram Base, providing intelligence about enemy movements while slowly working her way toward a rendezvous point where a rescue team could safely extract her. On the 4th day, as Maria climbed toward a predetermined extraction point, she heard familiar voices on her radio. "Guardian Angel, this is Senior Chief Martinez. We're coming to get you." "Senior Chief, you're supposed to be back at base recovering. Ma'am, no SEAL team leaves anyone behind, especially not the Guardian Angel who saved our lives." 2 hours later, Maria Santos was aboard a helicopter flying back to Bagram Airfield, surrounded by the 8 members of SEAL Team 5 who had insisted on conducting her rescue mission personally. Senior Chief Martinez sat beside her, shaking his head in amazement. "Ma'am, what you did out there was beyond anything we've ever seen. You saved our team, then saved the rescue crew, then spent 4 days behind enemy lines disrupting insurgent operations single-handedly. You're not just a translator, you're a warrior." 3 weeks later, Maria stood in the Pentagon briefing room where she had been summoned to receive the Defense Intelligence Agency's highest civilian honor. Her children sat in the front row, having been flown to Washington to witness their mother's recognition. Secretary of Defense Williams pinned the medal on Maria's uniform jacket and spoke to the assembled military leadership. "Maria Santos represents the very best of American service. She volunteered for danger, excelled under pressure, and saved the lives of American service members through her courage, intelligence, and dedication. She embodies the warrior spirit that has made our nation strong." But for Maria, the real reward came that evening when she sat in her hotel room with Rosa, Miguel, and Sophia, finally able to tell them the complete story of her deployment to Afghanistan. "Mom," Rosa said quietly, "are you going back?" Maria looked at her children, thinking about the SEAL team still operating in dangerous places around the world, about the intelligence analysts who needed her unique skills, and about the opportunity to continue serving something greater than herself. "Not right away, mija, but someday when my country needs me again, I probably will." "Will you teach us your languages?" Miguel asked. "So we can help people too." Maria smiled, realizing that her journey from kitchen to battlefield had not just transformed her own life. It had shown her children that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they chose to serve others. "Yes, Mio, I'll teach you everything I know." As Maria Santos tucked her children into bed that night in Washington, D.C., she reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her from making breakfast in San Diego to saving SEAL teams in Afghanistan. She had defied every odd, overcome every obstacle, and proven that courage and determination could transform anyone from ordinary to extraordinary. The woman who had once worried about paying bills and arranging childcare had become a legend in the special operations community, a guardian angel whose skills and bravery had saved American lives in the mountains of Afghanistan. Maria Santos had traveled the distance from kitchen to battlefield, and in doing so, she had discovered exactly who she was meant to be. The helicopter touched down on a rocky plateau surrounded by jagged peaks, and Maria jumped out with her equipment, immediately feeling the thin mountain air burning her lungs. The pilot gave her a thumbs up and shouted over the rotor noise, 40 minutes until extract. "Stay safe, ma'am." As the helicopter disappeared into the gray afternoon sky, Maria found herself alone on a mountainside in Afghanistan, 3 miles from 8 trapped American soldiers and an unknown number of enemy fighters who would kill her without hesitation if they discovered her presence. She quickly set up her portable communication equipment behind a cluster of rocks that provided some concealment. The advanced radio system allowed her to monitor multiple frequencies simultaneously while maintaining contact with both the trapped SEAL team and the command center at Bagram. "Senior Chief Martinez, this is Guardian Angel," Maria said, using the call sign she had been assigned for this mission. "I'm in position and monitoring enemy communications. Guardian Angel, we copy. Status is critical. Enemy assault began 5 minutes ago. We need immediate intelligence on their attack pattern." Maria put on her headphones and began scanning radio frequencies. Almost immediately, she heard the enemy commander coordinating the assault in rapid Pashto. Her blood chilled as she translated his words. Senior Chief, enemy commander is directing mortar teams to target your position in 2 minutes. Grid coordinates suggest they're aiming for the rocky outcrop on your eastern side. Copy. Guardian Angel. Moving position now. Through her binoculars, Maria could see muzzle flashes in the valley below where the SEALs were fighting. The sound of gunfire echoed off the mountain walls, creating a constant rumble that made her heart race. This was nothing like the safe, sterile intelligence center at Bagram, but Maria forced herself to focus on the radio traffic. She began to understand the enemy's tactical plan. They were using the SEALs' limited ammunition against them, forcing them to fire at diversionary attacks while the real assault came from unexpected directions. Senior Chief, they're running a deception operation. The main attack from the south is a diversion. The real assault is coming from your northwest, led by their best fighters, 15 men with heavy weapons. Guardian Angel, you just saved our lives. We're repositioning to counter that attack. For the next hour, Maria provided a constant stream of intelligence that kept the SEAL team one step ahead of their enemies. She translated not just words but emotions, detecting when the enemy commander was frustrated, when fighters were losing morale, and when new tactics were being discussed. But then she heard something that made her stomach drop. Senior Chief, I'm picking up communications about a secondary mission. They're not just trying to kill your team. They're trying to capture one of you alive. High-value prisoner for propaganda purposes. Copy, Guardian Angel. We'll die before we let that happen. Maria continued monitoring as the battle raged below. The enemy was taking heavy casualties, but they had the SEALs completely surrounded. Air support was still grounded due to weather, and ground reinforcements were still hours away. That's when Maria heard the conversation that changed everything. Speaking in a regional dialect of Pashto that few translators would recognize, 2 enemy fighters were discussing a mountain trail that led directly behind the SEALs' position. The trail was apparently used by local shepherds and was too narrow for large groups, but a small team could use it to get within grenade range of the Americans. But Maria also heard something else. One of the fighters mentioned that the trail was dangerous, with loose rocks that could cause fatal falls. Local knowledge was required to navigate it safely. Senior Chief, I have critical intelligence about an enemy flanking route, but I also have an idea that could get your team out of there. Talk to me. Guardian Angel. Maria studied her topographical maps and compared them with what she was hearing in the enemy communications. There's a shepherd's trail that leads from your position to an extract point 2 miles east. The enemy knows about it but considers it too dangerous to use. However, if I can provide real-time guidance based on local knowledge I'm picking up from their communications, you might be able to use it to escape. Guardian Angel, that would require you to guide us step by step through hostile territory. Are you prepared for that level of involvement? Maria thought about her children waiting at home, about the safe life she could return to if she simply continued providing translation support from her position. But she also thought about 8 American soldiers who were going to die if she didn't give them everything she had. Senior Chief, I'm your guardian angel. That's exactly what I'm prepared to do. For the next 2 hours, Maria guided the SEAL team through a fighting withdrawal toward the dangerous mountain trail. She coordinated their movements with enemy positions, warned them about incoming attacks, and provided tactical advice based on enemy communications she was intercepting. Move now. Enemy sniper team is repositioning. You have 30 seconds of concealment. Wait. Enemy patrol approaching from your east. Hold position for 2 minutes. Go, go, go. Clear path to the trail entrance. First waypoint is a large boulder shaped like a camel's hump. As the SEALs began their dangerous journey along the shepherd's trail, Maria found herself in the most intense situation of her life. She was simultaneously monitoring enemy communications, coordinating with the SEAL team, updating Bagram Command Center, and providing step-by-step navigation guidance through treacherous mountain terrain. Senior Chief, enemy commander is realizing you've left your position. He's sending pursuit teams, but they don't know about the trail yet. You have maybe 10 minutes before they figure out your route. Copy, Guardian Angel. We're at your first waypoint. What's next? Maria listened carefully to intercepted conversations between local fighters who knew the mountain trails. Follow the trail east for 200 meters until you reach a split. Take the higher path, not the lower one. Local fighters say the lower path has unstable rocks that will give away your position. But Maria's position was becoming increasingly dangerous. Enemy fighters were expanding their search pattern, and she could hear radio chatter about foreign voices being detected in the area. They knew someone was providing intelligence support to the Americans. Guardian Angel, this is Bagram Base. We're tracking enemy movement toward your position. You need to extract now. Negative, Bagram. SEAL Team 5 is still on the trail. They need continuous guidance to reach the extract point safely. As darkness began to fall, Maria made the decision that would define her legacy. Enemy fighters were closing in on her position, but the SEAL team was still navigating the most dangerous section of the mountain trail. Without her real-time guidance, they would likely fall into enemy hands or die in the treacherous terrain. Senior Chief, I'm picking up radio traffic about pursuit teams on your trail. They're about 15 minutes behind you, but they know the terrain better than you do. I need to guide you through a shortcut that locals use, but it's extremely dangerous. What kind of dangerous, Guardian Angel? Maria translated the urgent conversations she was hearing between local fighters. There's a section where you'll need to traverse a narrow ledge with a 100-foot drop. But if you can make it across, you'll reach the extract point while your pursuers are still following the main trail. Guardian Angel, we trust you. Guide us through. For the next hour, as enemy fighters searched the mountains for her position, Maria provided step-by-step instructions that led the SEAL team across terrain that would challenge experienced mountain climbers. She translated not just directions but cultural knowledge about how local people navigated these ancient paths. 20 steps forward, then there's a handhold carved into the rock by generations of shepherds. After that follow the trail markers, small stones stacked in pyramids. Guardian Angel, we're at the ledge you mentioned. This looks impossible in the dark. Maria heard gunfire getting closer to her position. Enemy fighters had found her equipment and were searching the surrounding area. She had maybe 5 minutes before they discovered her hiding place. Senior Chief, there are handholds every 3 feet along the rock face. The locals carved them centuries ago. Move slowly, test each hold, and remember, your families are waiting for you to come home. Guardian Angel, your voice is breaking up. Are you okay? Maria could see flashlight beams searching the rocks around her position. She lowered her voice to barely above a whisper. Senior Chief, I'm fine. Focus on the crossing. You're almost home. 20 minutes later, Senior Chief Martinez's voice crackled through her radio with the words Maria had been praying to hear. Guardian Angel, SEAL Team 5 is at the extract point. Helicopter inbound. All team members accounted for. Maria felt tears of relief streaming down her face, but her situation was becoming desperate. Enemy fighters were shouting to each other in Pashto, coordinating their search of her immediate area. She had maybe 2 minutes before they found her. Bagram Base, this is Guardian Angel. SEAL Team 5 is secure. I need immediate Guardian Angel. Extraction helicopter is 10 minutes out. Can you evade until then? Maria gathered her equipment and began moving toward her own extract point, but she could hear enemy fighters getting closer. They had found her communication cables and were following them directly to her posit. 2 months into her deployment, Maria had settled into a routine that would have seemed impossible when she first arrived. She woke each morning to the sound of helicopters and the call to morning prayers from nearby villages, a reminder that she was living between two worlds, the heavily fortified American base and the ancient Afghan landscape that surrounded it. Her reputation had grown beyond the intelligence center. SEAL teams specifically requested her for their operations, knowing that her cultural understanding went far beyond simple language translation. She could detect subtle changes in tone that indicated deception, recognize regional dialects that revealed where fighters were from, and understand cultural references that provided crucial context for intelligence analysis. But Maria's most important discovery came from an unexpected source. While reviewing routine communications intercepts, she noticed patterns that others had missed. Certain phrases and timing suggested that someone was using religious language to pass coded messages about American operations. Dr. Foster, Maria called to her friend across the intelligence center. Can you look at something? I think I found how our security leak is operating. Amanda Foster hurried over to Maria's workstation, where several documents were displayed on multiple screens. What am I looking at? These are communications from 3 different insurgent cells intercepted over the past 6 weeks, Maria explained. Look at the timestamps and the specific religious phrases they use. Amanda studied the documents carefully. These prayers are very specific, not the standard Islamic prayers. and they're being sent at unusual times. Exactly. Someone is using Islamic prayer language to encode information about American operations. The times of transmission correspond to our mission schedules, and the prayer references contain coded information about routes, targets, and timing. Maria had discovered that the security leak wasn't just someone passing information directly to the enemy. Instead, someone with access to classified information was encoding operational details into seemingly innocent, religious communications that were then transmitted through normal Afghan communication channels. This is sophisticated, Amanda said. Whoever is doing this understands both Islamic culture and American military procedures. Maria spent the next week building a comprehensive analysis of the coded communications, working with cryptography experts to decode the full system. What they discovered was shocking. The leak had been operating for over 8 months, compromising dozens of operations and putting hundreds of soldiers at risk. The investigation led to Afghan interpreter, who had been working with American forces for 3 years. Abdul Rahman had gained the trust of American commanders and had access to operational briefings. His betrayal had cost lives and compromised national security, but his sophisticated encoding system had kept him undetected until Maria's cultural knowledge revealed the truth. But Maria's greatest test came on a Tuesday morning in her 11th week of deployment. She was reviewing routine intelligence when alarms began blaring throughout the base. Rocket attacks were common, but this alarm was different, longer, more urgent. Captain Hayes burst into the intelligence center. "We have a major situation. SEAL Team 5 is trapped in the mountains 40 miles northeast. They were pursuing a high-value target when they walked into a complex ambush. 8 men, surrounded by at least 50 enemy fighters. Maria's blood ran cold. What's their status? 3 wounded, limited ammunition, and no clear extract route. Weather has grounded air support, and ground reinforcements are 6 hours away. They need intelligence support to find a way out." Maria was immediately connected to the team's communications. She could hear gunfire in the background as team leader Senior Chief Martinez reported their situation. "Base, we're in a valley with high ground on 3 sides. Enemy has us pinned down with accurate sniper fire and RPGs. We need alternate routes out of here." "Senior Chief, this is intelligence. We're going to monitor enemy communications and provide real-time updates on their positions and intentions." For the next 8 hours, Maria became the lifeline for 8 trapped SEALs. She monitored dozens of enemy radio frequencies, tracking their movements, predicting their tactics, and identifying weaknesses in their positions. "Senior Chief, enemy commander is frustrated that you haven't moved in 2 hours. He's splitting his forces, sending 20 fighters to flank your position from the north." This intelligence allowed the SEALs to reposition and prepare for the flanking attack, turning a potentially devastating situation into an opportunity to thin the enemy's numbers. But as the day wore on, Maria realized the enemy was adapting to her intelligence gathering. They began switching frequencies and using code words she couldn't immediately decipher. "I'm losing their communications," Maria reported to the command center. "They know we're listening and they're adapting." That's when Maria made a decision that would define her entire deployment. "Captain Hayes, I need to get closer to their position. If I can monitor their communications from closer range, I might be able to pick up short-range radios and face-to-face conversations." "Absolutely not," Captain Hayes replied immediately. "You're a civilian contractor, not a combat operative." "Those 8 men are going to die if I can't provide better intelligence," Maria insisted. "I'm the only one here who can understand the cultural context of what they're saying. I need to be there." Senior Chief Martinez's voice crackled over the radio. "Base, enemy is massing for final assault. We count at least 40 fighters moving into position. This is it." Maria looked around the command center at the faces of the officers monitoring the situation. She thought about Commander Morrison's team, whose lives she had saved months ago. She thought about her children back home and about the promise she had made to her late husband to serve something greater than herself. "I'm going," she announced, standing up and grabbing her gear. "Maria, I can't authorize this," Captain Hayes said. "Then don't authorize it. But I'm not staying here while 8 Americans die because I was too scared to do my job." Within 20 minutes, Maria was aboard a helicopter flying toward the mountains where Team 5 was trapped. She had no combat training beyond the basic self-defense course all contractors received. She had never been in a firefight. But she had something the trapped SEALs desperately needed: the ability to understand their enemies in ways that could save their lives. As the helicopter approached the landing zone, 3 miles from Team 5's position, Maria could see smoke rising from the valley where the SEALs were fighting for their lives. The helicopter pilot, Chief Warrant Officer Johnson, looked back at her with concern. "Ma'am, you sure about this? That's a hot LZ and we can't guarantee extraction if things go bad." Maria checked her equipment one more time. Portable radio, satellite communication device, laptop computer, and her personal sidearm that she hoped she would never need to use. "Chief, those men are counting on me, I'm sure." As the helicopter descended toward the rocky landing zone, Maria Santos realized she was about to cross a line that would forever separate her old life from her new one. She was no longer just a translator or analyst. She was about to become something she had never imagined possible, a civilian woman walking into active combat to save the lives of America's most elite warriors. The transformation from kitchen to battlefield was almost complete. The C-130 military transport plane was nothing like the commercial flights Maria had taken during her college years. No windows, uncomfortable webbed seats, and the constant roar of engines made conversation nearly impossible. She sat surrounded by soldiers heading to various assignments, all of them looking far more comfortable with the situation than she felt. Maria clutched her laptop bag tightly, knowing it contained the most advanced translation software the military had provided her, along with extensive files on the current situation in Afghanistan. The 2 weeks of intensive training at Coronado had prepared her for many things, but not for the reality of leaving her children for 3 months. Rosa had been incredibly mature about the whole situation, promising to help take care of her younger siblings while staying with their grandmother. Miguel had been quiet but supportive, asking detailed questions about her work that she couldn't fully answer due to security restrictions. Sophie had been the hardest, clinging to Maria at the airport and asking repeatedly when Mommy would come home. 2 weeks until first video call, mija, Maria had promised, and I'll send letters every day. Now, flying over the Atlantic Ocean toward a war zone, Maria wondered if she had made the right decision. But every time doubt crept in, she remembered Commander Morrison's words about saving 8 lives, and she knew she was exactly where she needed to be. Bagram Airfield was unlike anything Maria had ever experienced. The base sprawled across miles of desert, surrounded by mountains that looked beautiful and threatening at the same time. Armed guards, concrete barriers, and the constant sound of helicopters reminded her that this was an active combat zone. Her quarters were basic, but comfortable. A small room with a bed, desk and lockers, shared bathroom facilities down the hall. The walls were thick concrete, designed to withstand rocket attacks that apparently happened more frequently than she had been told. Captain Jennifer Hayes, her liaison officer, met her at the arrival area. "Welcome to Bagram, Maria. I know this is a big adjustment, but you're joining an incredible team here. Your reputation has preceded you." "My reputation?" Maria asked, confused. Word travels fast in the SEAL community. Commander Morrison's team has been telling everyone about the analyst who prevented their ambush. "You're already legendary." Maria felt a mixture of pride and pressure. "I just did my job." "That's exactly the attitude that's going to make you successful here," Captain Hayes said as they walked through the base. "Your job here will be similar to what you did in San Diego, but the timeline will be much faster. When teams are in the field, they need real-time analysis. Minutes can mean the difference between mission success and casualties." They stopped at a building that looked more heavily fortified than the others. "This is the Joint Intelligence Center. You'll be working here, but you'll also be on call 24/7. When a team in the field sends intelligence that needs immediate translation, you'll get a call regardless of the time." Inside the building, Maria was introduced to a team of analysts, linguists, and intelligence officers from various branches of the military. She was surprised to discover she wasn't the only civilian contractor. There were several others with specialized skills that the military needed. Dr. Amanda Foster, a cultural anthropologist from Georgetown University, became Maria's first friend on the base. "The first week is the hardest," Amanda said as they sat in the dining facility that evening. "You miss home, you question everything, and the reality of where you are hits you. But then you see how important your work is, and it becomes easier." "How long have you been here?" Maria asked. 8 months. I was supposed to be here for 6, but they asked me to extend. The work is too important to leave unfinished." That night, Maria was awakened at 2 a.m. by her secure phone. A SEAL team was 30 miles north of the base, pursuing a high-value target. and they had intercepted communications that needed immediate translation. Maria threw on her clothes and ran to the intelligence center, where she found a room full of people monitoring the operation in real time. Large screens showed satellite feeds, radio communication scrolled across monitors, and officers coordinated with the team in the field. Maria, "Thank God," said Major Rodriguez, the night shift commander. "We have audio intercepts from the target location. The team needs to know if they're walking into a trap." Maria put on headphones and listened to the Arabic communications. Her blood ran cold as she realized what she was hearing. "Major, they know the Americans are coming. This isn't just preparation, they're setting up a counter-ambush. They have the team's approach route." Major Rodriguez immediately got on the radio with the team leader. "Phantom 6, this is base. Intelligence indicates hostile forces have knowledge of your approach. Recommend alternate route." The team leader's voice crackled through the radio. "Base, we're already committed to this approach. What's the threat assessment?" Maria listened to more communications, picking up details about weapons placement and the number of fighters involved. "Major, they have at least 15 fighters with heavy weapons positioned along the primary approach route. But I'm hearing something else." She listened more carefully to background conversations. "Sir, there's a secondary group. They're planning to attack the team's extract point. They know where the helicopters are supposed to land." The major's face went pale. "Phantom 6, abort mission." "Repeat, abort mission." "Intelligence indicates compromise of both approach and extract routes." "Negative, base. Target is too high value. We're adapting approach." Maria continued monitoring communications, providing real-time updates as the insurgents repositioned their forces. For 3 hours, she served as the eyes and ears for the SEAL team, translating not just words but tactical intentions and emotional states. "They're getting nervous," she reported as she detected anxiety in the insurgents' voices. "The leader is questioning whether their information is accurate. They're starting to doubt themselves." This intelligence allowed the SEAL team to exploit the enemy's uncertainty, ultimately approaching from an unexpected direction and capturing their target without casualties. As the team reported mission success, the intelligence center erupted in quiet celebration. Major Rodriguez approached Maria as she finally removed her headphones. "Outstanding work, Maria. That team owes their lives to your analysis tonight." But Maria was thinking about something else she had heard in the intercepted communications. "Major, we have a bigger problem." The insurgents had detailed information about American operations. They knew call signs, approach routes, and extract procedures. This indicates a security breach at a very high level. The major's expression became serious. "What kind of breach?" "Someone with access to operational planning is feeding information to the enemy. Tonight's mission was compromised before it even began." This revelation launched a major security investigation that would uncover a network of corruption and betrayal, extending much higher than anyone had imagined. But that night, Maria was simply proud that she had helped bring 8 American soldiers home safely. As she returned to her quarters at dawn, Maria realized that her role here was evolving beyond simple translation. She was becoming a real-time intelligence analyst, a cultural interpreter, and a critical link between American forces and their enemies' intentions. Her phone buzzed with a message from Rosa. "Mom, saw on the news that things are happening where you are. Are you safe? We love you." Maria typed back, "Safe and sound, mija. Making a difference. Love you all so much." Looking out at the Afghan mountains as the sun rose, Maria Santos understood that she was no longer just a single mother from San Diego. She was becoming something she had never expected, a warrior in her own right, fighting a different kind of battle with words and understanding instead of weapons. But the real test of her courage was still to come. The security clearance process was unlike anything Maria had ever experienced. For 3 weeks, federal agents interviewed everyone from her high school teachers to her neighbors, asking detailed questions about her character, her loyalties, and her past. They examined her financial records, her social media accounts, and even spoke with her children's teachers. Maria's children knew something important was happening, but she could only tell them that she was being considered for a new job that might help people. Sophia, her youngest at 6, kept asking if Mommy was going to be a superhero. Maria would laugh and say no, but deep down, she wondered if maybe in some small way, she was about to become exactly that. The call came on a Thursday evening while Maria was helping Miguel with his math homework. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's voice was professional but warm. "Congratulations, Maria. Your clearance came through. Can you start Monday?" Maria's heart pounded. "What exactly will I be doing?" "Initially, document translation and analysis. But Maria, I need you to understand something. This work can be dangerous. The intelligence we deal with involves active threats, and the people we're tracking don't hesitate to hurt anyone they see as an enemy." Maria looked around her small apartment, at her children doing homework at the kitchen table, at the photos of her late husband on the walls. "I understand," she said quietly. "I'm ready." Her first day at the naval base was overwhelming. The security was intense with multiple checkpoints and armed guards. Maria was given an identification badge, a security briefing, and a small office in a building she was told to never discuss with anyone outside. Her supervisor was Lieutenant Sarah Chen, an intelligence officer who had been working with SEAL teams for 5 years. "Maria, you're here because you have skills we desperately need. But I want you to understand that this isn't just about translation. You'll be analyzing communications from terrorist cells, drug cartels, and hostile foreign agents. The information you provide will directly impact mission planning and soldier safety." Maria was shown to a computer terminal with the highest level of security she had ever seen. Multiple passwords, biometric scanners, and encryption software protected every piece of information she would access. Her first assignment was a stack of intercepted communications from Afghanistan, written in a dialect of Pashto that their regular translators had struggled with. As Maria read through the documents, her blood ran cold. These weren't just casual communications. They were detailed plans for attacks on American forces, including specific targeting of SEAL teams operating in the region. The intelligence was fresh, dated just 3 days earlier. "Lieutenant Chen," Maria called out after reading through the first document, "and this is urgent. They're planning an ambush." Sarah Chen rushed over and read Maria's translation. Her face went pale. "Are you certain about this translation? The timing, the location?" Maria pointed to specific phrases in the original text. "This word here, Gafligir, it doesn't just mean surprise attack. In this context, with these other words, it means a carefully planned ambush using insider knowledge. And this phrase here suggests they have someone feeding them information about American patrol routes." Sarah immediately picked up a secure phone. "This is Chen. I need to speak with command immediately. We have actionable intelligence about a planned ambush." Within minutes, the small office was buzzing with activity. Senior officers Maria had never seen before were reviewing her translations, asking detailed questions about specific words and phrases. Colonel Williams, the base intelligence chief, studied Maria carefully. "Mrs. Santos, your translation suggests the attack is planned for tomorrow. How confident are you in this timeline?" Maria reviewed the documents again, paying special attention to cultural references and implied meanings. "Very confident, sir. They reference the morning prayers and the evening call to prayer in a way that suggests a daylight operation, and this phrase here suggests they're waiting for a specific patrol that runs every Thursday." "Thursday is tomorrow," Colonel Williams said grimly. "Sarah, get me SEAL Team 7's commanding officer. Now." Commander Rick Morrison arrived within 10 minutes, still wearing his training gear. Maria watched as these elite soldiers discussed her intelligence with the seriousness of men whose lives depended on accurate information. "Ma'am," Commander Morrison addressed Maria directly, "my team is scheduled for that exact patrol route tomorrow. If your translation is correct, you may have just saved 8 lives." The mission was immediately postponed while a new intelligence assessment was conducted. Maria worked through the night, translating additional documents that had come in, each one adding more pieces to the puzzle. She discovered not just the planned ambush, but details about the weapons involved, the number of attackers, and even their planned escape routes. By dawn, the picture was clear. A cell of 12 insurgents armed with rocket-propelled grenades and automatic weapons had been planning to attack the SEAL patrol from 3 separate positions along a mountain pass. The attack would have been devastating, but Maria's work revealed something even more disturbing. The insurgents had detailed information about American patrol schedules, radio frequencies, and even the names of specific soldiers. There was definitely an informant somewhere in the system. "Mrs. Santos," Colonel Williams said as the sun rose over the base, "I want you to know that your work tonight has prevented what would have been a catastrophic loss of American lives. But I need to ask you something important. Are you prepared to take this further?" Maria was exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline, but she understood the implication. "What do you mean, sir?" We need someone with your skills in the field, not on the front lines, but close enough to provide real-time translation and analysis. It would mean deploying to Afghanistan, working directly with SEAL teams on active operations. Maria thought about her children, about the promise she had made to her late husband to keep their family safe. But she also thought about Commander Morrison's 8-man team, about the families who would have lost fathers, husbands, and sons if she hadn't been there to translate those documents. "What kind of deployment are we talking about?" she asked. 3 months initially, Sarah Chen explained. "You'd be based at Bagram Airfield, but you might need to travel to forward operating bases. You'd work with different SEAL teams providing translation services and intelligence analysis for active missions." Maria's mind raced. 3 months away from her children was an enormous sacrifice, but she had already seen how critical her skills were, how much difference she could make. "I'll need to arrange care for my children," she said finally, "and I'll need to know exactly what I'm signing up for." Commander Morrison stepped forward. "Ma'am, I can't sugarcoat this. Afghanistan is dangerous. Even on a secure base, there are risks. Rocket attacks, suicide bombers, insider threats. But I can promise you that you'll be protected by the best soldiers in the world, and your work will save lives." Maria looked around the room at these serious, dedicated professionals who had accepted her so completely. Just a month ago, she had been serving pancakes at a diner. Now she was being asked to deploy to a war zone to support America's most elite fighting force. "I need 24 hours to arrange things at home and talk to my children," she said, but my answer is yes. As Maria drove home that morning, she practiced what she would tell Rosa, Miguel, and Sophia. How do you explain to children that their mother was about to become part of something much bigger than their small family? How do you make them understand that sometimes serving others means making sacrifices? She pulled into her driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the small house that had been their sanctuary. In 2 weeks, she would be on a military transport plane heading to Afghanistan, carrying her laptop and her skills into a war zone where her ability to understand language and culture could mean the difference between life and death for American soldiers. Maria Santos was about to discover that the path from kitchen to battlefield was shorter than she had ever imagined. Maria Santos never imagined that her morning routine of making breakfast for her 3 children would one day save the lives of America's most elite soldiers. At 34, she was just another single mother working 2 jobs in San Diego, trying to make ends meet after her husband's death in a car accident 2 years earlier. Her days started at 4 a.m., preparing meals at a local diner before heading to her second job as a translator for the immigration office. Maria spoke 4 languages fluently: Spanish, English, Arabic, and Pashto, skills she had learned growing up in a diverse neighborhood and later perfected during her college years studying international relations. But life had other plans, and those dreams of working in diplomacy were put on hold when she became a widow with 3 young mouths to feed. The small apartment she shared with her children, Rosa, Miguel, and little Sophia, was located just 15 minutes from the naval base Coronado. She often heard the helicopters flying overhead during training exercises, never knowing that her path would soon intersect with the very men flying those missions. It was a Tuesday morning in March when everything changed. Maria was walking to work through Balboa Park, taking her usual shortcut, when she noticed a man sitting on a bench who looked completely out of place. He was wearing civilian clothes, but something about his posture, the way he scanned his surroundings, and the small scars visible on his hands told her he was military. What concerned her more was that he appeared to be in distress. The man was Lieutenant Commander James Mitchell, though Maria didn't know that yet. He had been awake for 36 hours straight, dealing with a crisis that he couldn't discuss with anyone outside his unit. His SEAL team had been preparing for a classified mission in Afghanistan, but intelligence reports were coming in languages that their usual translators couldn't handle effectively. The mission was critical, time-sensitive, and lives hung in the balance. Maria approached carefully, her maternal instincts kicking in. "Excuse me, are you okay?" she asked gently. Mitchell looked up, surprised by the kindness in her voice. He was trained to be suspicious of strangers, but something about this woman seemed genuine. "I'm fine, thank you," he replied, though his exhaustion was obvious. Maria noticed his slight tremor and the way he kept checking his phone. She had seen this kind of stress before in her late husband, who had served briefly in the Army Reserve. "You look like you haven't slept in days," Maria said. sitting down beside him despite knowing she would be late for work. My husband used to get that same look when he was dealing with something big. Mitchell found himself talking to this stranger, something he rarely did. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the genuine concern in her eyes, but he found himself explaining his frustration without revealing classified details. I'm dealing with some work problems. We have information in languages our team doesn't fully understand, and we need accurate translations fast. People's lives depend on it. Maria's heart raced. This was exactly the kind of work she had dreamed of doing, the reason she had studied so hard in college. What languages? She asked carefully. When Mitchell mentioned Arabic and Pashto among others, Maria's eyes widened. I speak both of those, she said quietly. Fluently. Mitchell studied her face, his training kicking in. What's your background? Maria explained her education, her work at the immigration office, and her experience translating sensitive documents. She spoke about her late husband's service and her own desire to contribute to something meaningful. As she talked, Mitchell realized he might be looking at the solution to his team's problem. This might sound crazy, Mitchell said, but would you be willing to help with some translation work? It would be unofficial at first, but if you're as good as you say you are, it could lead to something more. Maria thought about her children, about the bills piling up on her kitchen table, about the dreams she had put aside. But more than that, she thought about the opportunity to finally use her skills to help people, to make a difference. What kind of translation work? She asked. Mitchell explained that his team needed someone who could not only translate words but understand cultural context and nuance. Many translators could convert language mechanically, but few could grasp the deeper meanings, the implications, the subtle threats or promises hidden in seemingly innocent phrases. Intelligence documents, Mitchell said carefully, communications intercepts, things that could help save lives. Maria felt a chill run down her spine. This was serious, more serious than anything she had ever been involved in. But something deep inside her, the same instinct that had driven her to approach this stranger, told her this was important. I'll need to arrange childcare, she said finally, and I'll need to know more about what I'm getting into. Mitchell smiled for the first time in days. I can't promise it will be easy, and I can't promise it will be safe. But I can promise it will matter. They exchanged contact information, and Mitchell explained that she would need to undergo security clearance procedures, background checks, and evaluations. It would take time, but if everything checked out, she could be working with his team within weeks. As Maria walked to work that morning, her mind raced with possibilities and fears. She thought about her children, about the stable life she had worked so hard to build for them. But she also thought about the opportunity to honor her husband's memory by serving her country in her own way. That evening, as she tucked her children into bed, Rosa, her eldest at 12, noticed her mother's distracted state. Mom, you seem different today. Did something happen? Maria looked at her daughter, so wise for her age, and chose her words carefully. I might have an opportunity to use my language skills to help people. It would mean some changes for our family, but it could be really important work. Rosa smiled. Dad would be proud, wouldn't he? Maria felt tears well up in her eyes. Yes, mija. He would be very proud. As she sat at her kitchen table that night, looking at the business card Mitchell had given her, Maria Santos had no idea that she was about to embark on a journey that would take her from the safety of her neighborhood to the dangerous mountains of Afghanistan, where her skills and courage would mean the difference between life and death for an entire SEAL team. The phone call would come in 3 days, officially beginning her transformation from a single mother working 2 jobs to a woman who would defy every odd stacked against her.